and if necessary, destroy media narratives. Okay, Joe's decided on his VP pick. It's Kamala Harris, the senator from California that did abysmal during the primary, and is known to be completely and absolutely transactional. She certainly is a pedigree from the Hillary Clinton style of politics. To discuss her candidacy, the campaign, and a foreign policy angle, I'm joined by Philip Giraldi. He is a former CIA counter-terrorism specialist. Phil, welcome to the program. What's your initial reaction? Because we were given a kind of a fake out. It was 24 hours ago. Everyone was talking about Susan Rice. Now it's Kamala Harris. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Susan Rice would have been possibly a worse choice because she was intimately tied to virtually every bad policy that came out of the Obama administration. But Kamala is the kind of personality, the kind of let's say she checks all the boxes that they were looking for. She's a woman. She's colored. She has a history of being strict law and order, which the Democrats always try to claim as one of their principles, even though it's not. So she checks a lot of the boxes. She's attractive, but the fact is she's basically a rubber stamp for Joe Biden. Biden essentially is a hardliner in foreign policy, though again he pretends not to be. And she's basically the same sort of thing. Both of them are tied very closely to the Israel lobby, which means that the policies in the Mideast are going to remain the same. And more importantly to me, they're both very hostile to Russia. They've really picked up on the Democratic Party theme that Russia was the problem in 2016 and is going to be the problem in 2020. And they're the ones also pushing this totally fabricated story about the Russian government paying Taliban to bring in American scalps. I mean, the whole thing is totally contrived, and they're both strong believers in it.
Yeah, the interesting thing is the banality of it, I suppose, is that this is just going to be an Obama retread. I mean, I just don't see anything different. It's the same policymakers that are surrounding Joe. They're not doing a very good job with his campaign. I guess you can't generically change his speech pattern and thought pattern because he doesn't put on a very good show. That's really Kamala Harris. She is attractive in her own way. She's not particularly convincing. I don't think she comes off as particularly friendly either, because that came out through the debates. I mean, she was basically, damn it, listen to me. I mean, she's used to having that kind of a reaction to her, and it didn't happen. Tulsi Gabbard did a very good, an excellent job on shutting her down. I don't see what she adds to the ticket other than checking the boxes, as you said. Maybe she is just going to be some kind of front person for Joe on the campaign.
Well, again, I think it's a question of the Democrats' campaign strategy, if you want to call it that. Essentially, is to let Trump self-destruct.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that it's going to play out that way. Joe Biden, having been in hiding now for about 3 months, illustrates the fact that they think that the less that is said is the better. And of course, she's going to be in that kind of mold too. I would imagine it'll be the most boring debate in the world when she and Pence get together in one room for 90 minutes. But the fact is, I think they believe that Trump has already relinquished the high ground, and it's up to them to just sort of stand there and catch the debris and get the voters out. The one negative, there were a lot of negatives about Kamala, but the one negative with certainly the Black community is her record as a hardliner when she was a district attorney and prosecutor. She sent a lot of people to prison for smoking marijuana, which apparently she smokes herself. So it's it's a typical story. There's a trade-off here, a trade-off there. I would have liked to see a stronger showing from the progressive side of the Democratic Party, and I was a bit upset that we didn't go in that direction, because I think there's a lot of vitality on that side, and there's a lot of willingness to change the status quo. So we're not going to see any of that.
It's really interesting, guys. I know you're a conservative. I'm a conservative, and I was rooting for Bernie the whole time because because and picking Kamala Harris is a kick in the teeth to the progressives. It just shows again that these elites within the Democratic Party and their donor class are not going to brook any kind of dissent whatsoever, because Kamala Harris, she'll be whatever you want her to be. She's transactional. She wants power. She sees Joe Biden as being weak in every single sense. And this is just an opening for the donor class. I mean, she's the golden girl, not Joe, because who knows what's going to happen to Joe, but it's going to be able to have their clinch on power. And progressives that, in the primary, 40% of the votes went to progressives, and they're completely locked out. And this was so easily predictable. I don't think she's an attractive candidate. And I think one of the things you have to consider, in my opinion, it's going to be turnout is going to be everything in this campaign. That's going to determine everything here. Are the Bernie bros going to get off the couch and vote for Kamala Harris? That's an open question.
That is a good question, and I think, of course, the people who were Bernie followers, and I, like you, found Bernie a very attractive candidate, are not necessarily going to heed the direction coming from the top. I think they've had enough, and it'll be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out over the next month or so. So very interesting. I would have liked to see Tulsi Gabbard
Me too.
as the vice presidential candidate, because that would have been a real signal that real change was coming. And I think that a lot of voters, like ourselves in all probability, would have heeded that and would have been enthusiastic about voting for her on the ticket.
Yeah, one of the heartbreaks of the campaign for me was when she endorsed Biden. I mean, I was really hurt by that because, in my personal opinion, out of the entire Democratic field, she was the only presidential-like person. The way her poise, her speaking ability, her ability to articulate complex ideas into simple punching points, which I thought I really appreciated. It was a real disappointment. And not picking her and not a progressive, even though I have a revulsion towards Elizabeth Warren because I think she's a fraud. But what the interesting thing is with the Biden Harris ticket, it shows they've learned nothing in 4 years, nothing at all. And they've never had an autopsy. Oh, Russia. That's their autopsy for 2016. And I am very disappointed in the Trump presidency. Trump ran as a populist, but he has not governed as one, and that is a disappointment for me. And you've been on Crosstalk many times, and we've both lamented that he didn't enact upon his foreign policy promises of the campaign. Okay, it's such a low bar. He didn't start a new war. I think that is such an indictment of American foreign policy. He didn't start a new war. It's so the bar is so low. So it seems to me that Trump can't run as an outsider because he is the inside. Okay, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult for a president to run as a law and order president as an incumbent. It's not the power of Biden, not of Harris, and not of the DNC. It's the weakness of Donald Trump and the people that had surrounded him during these 3.5 years. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I essentially agree with everything you've just said. I think that what we're looking at here is the Democrats are playing this card that Trump will give them the victory, in effect, by his own lack of ability to be effective. But I would point out another thing. Now, I'm on the ground here in the United States, and the violence that's been going on over the last 2 months is having a tremendous impact here. And I really believe that if the Democrats are not careful and get too close to that live wire, there are going to be a lot of people who go into that voters booth intending to vote for Biden and changing their minds at the last second. Yeah. I can see that happening because people are really concerned. For the first time in many years, Americans are not secure in their own homes anymore. They're not secure when they go out on the street. and a number of, and this is basically all tied to the Democratic Party, because the politicians that are being particularly passive about the violence that's taking place are Democrats. So yeah. I can see a big swing towards Trump on Election Day. I'm not too happy about that, but you know, it's something I think that actually could happen.
No, wait, you and I are in this dismal situation. Is that, you know, I certainly don't want to see a Biden-Harris presidency at all, but I really wish that Trump would step up. Okay, I mean, it's kind of a impoverished position to have right now. The thing that I find really concerning, and we'll finish off on this, is that the media wars that are going on. I don't know if you saw Brian Stelter asked the question on his program of a guest. He said, "Is there any anti-Trump, really anti-Trump media organization out there?" And all the guests said, "I can't think of one. I can't think of one." It was one of the most hysterical moments in television history, and CNN has a long line of them. Okay, the media is really weighed in on politics in such a, I think, very dishonest way. And if you don't watch Fox or something like that, you're not going to know about it, the level of violence that you point out. And so if there's any kind of tipping of the scales, it's certainly the media, but there's no surprise in that. Last question.
There was an interesting article in the New York Times yesterday about how many of the businesses that are now boarded up on Fifth Avenue and elsewhere are not going to be